And you're watching our rolling coverage of the breaking news that Yahya Sinwar has been killed in the Gaza Strip. We've just been confirmed by the Israeli military that he was killed on Wednesday. That is yesterday. He was killed on Wednesday in southern Gaza Strip in Rafah in a gunfight, and his body was then taken to Jerusalem to be identified. We don't know when his body was recovered by the Israelis, but we are now hearing that it was on Wednesday that he was killed. Yahya Sinwar is the man Israel accused of masterminding the October 7th attacks. He was born in the Khan Yunis refugee camp in southern Gaza in 1962. His family were refugees from Majd al-Asqalan, or what became Ashkelon after the creation of Israel. Sinwar spent 23 years of his life in Israeli prisons for allegedly planning the abduction and killing of 2 Israeli soldiers in 1988. He was released in 2011 as part of a prisoner exchange deal. An Israeli government assessment described him as ruthless and powerful. Sinwar used his time in jail to learn Hebrew and became fluent in the language. He became Hamas leader this year after the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. Well, Palestinians in Gaza have been reacting to the killing of Sinwar. Let's take a listen.
He knows his fate is martyrdom in God's name. All the Palestinian people know they're martyrs, and thanks be to God.
They did not only assassinate Yahya Sinwar, they also assassinated Ismail Haniyeh. They assassinated Hassan Nasrallah, and the war did not stop. We are not asking for them to assassinate this person or that. They have assassinated most of our leaders. We are calling for the war to stop.
We heard this news, but even if he is martyred, the war continues.
Well, Mohammed Javdoun is in Jordan's capital, Amman. That's because the Israeli government has banned Al Jazeera for several months now from reporting inside Israel. So, Mohammed Javdoun, we have just been getting the confirmation that we've been waiting for from the Israeli military that indeed Yahya Sinwar has been killed. Very interesting to note the timing of his death yesterday, Wednesday. What more do we know?
That's right, Laura. Let me read you and our viewers the statement that just moments ago was released finally by Israel's army. It reads in part that the Israeli army confirms that after a year-long pursuit, yesterday, Wednesday, October 16th, 2024, IDF soldiers from the Southern Command eliminated Yahya Sinwar, the leader of the Hamas terrorist organization, in an operation in the southern Gaza Strip. It goes on to say that Israeli army soldiers of the 828th Brigade operating in the area identified and eliminated 3 terrorists. After completing the process of identifying the body, it can be confirmed that Yahya Sinwar was eliminated. Not a lot more operational details beyond that. What we know from leaks that have been provided to the Israeli media by Israeli army officials earlier in the evening is that this was not any kind of an intelligence operation. These were Israeli soldiers that came across 3 armed gunmen, as they said, and they engaged in a firefight with them. And then once they saw the bodies, they suspected that one of those bodies belonged to Yahya Sinwar. Then those bodies were moved, as you mentioned earlier, to Jerusalem, and there were DNA tests that have been carried out. Finally, it has now been confirmed. One of the reasons, of course, that it didn't take longer to finalize the identification through this DNA testing is because Yahya Sinwar had been a prisoner in an Israeli prison for years. And so the Israelis already had his DNA and his fingerprints on file. That made the process of identifying, confirming that it was Yahya Sinwar who had been killed, that made it much easier and much less time consuming. Now, we're also seeing statements from Israel's Foreign Minister, Israel Katz, confirming that he had been killed, Sinwar had been killed, and we're starting to see other Israeli political leaders also commenting on their social media channels that Sinwar has been killed. Of course, this will be seen as a great victory in Israel for the Israeli army, and to that end, we are seeing a lot of videos posted on social media in various cities across Israel of parts of the population that are celebrating. We are seeing videos of people dancing in the streets, dancing along the beach. We are seeing videos of families having dinner and people popping champagne corks and drinking to the news that Yahya Sinwar had been killed. Up until now, it hadn't been officially confirmed by the Israeli army. Now it has been. And what we are awaiting next is it's expected that in about half an hour from now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be addressing Israelis and giving more details about all that has transpired in this past day and a half.
OK, well, we'll certainly be listening out for that. You talk about celebrations there amongst the Israeli population. Of course, not everyone is celebrating. We've also got pictures coming from Tel Aviv of the captives, relatives and friends protesting. It remains a somber mood there amongst those protesters because, of course, for them, nothing has changed. Their loved ones are still inside Gaza, and there's now maybe more questions as to how they get released, as we don't know who is going to be negotiating on behalf of Hamas.
That's right, Laura. And in fact, we've already seen a statement that was released by the Hostages Families Forum in Israel, in which they have commended the Israeli army for carrying out the killing of Yahya Sinwar. But they're also demanding that the government, and especially the prime minister, now really focus on trying to leverage what has been achieved to try and enter once again into mediation, to get a ceasefire and to get a prisoner and captive swap deal going. They have been coming out week after week since October 7th, demanding that the prime minister, that the government do more to focus more attention on the plight of their loved ones who remain captive in Gaza. And now they are saying this is the right moment. To that end, we are also seeing quotes throughout the Israeli media landscape just in the past hour. A lot of Israeli political analysts who are close to the government are starting to suggest in various articles that Netanyahu is going to be facing a lot of pressure in the days to come to try to come up finally with some type of a ceasefire deal so that those captives can be released. There are other analysts who are saying this is the perfect moment for him to try to go ahead and enter into mediation once more and get this deal done. One of the things that people in Israel have considered this past year is they have said in poll after poll that the only way that they will see what Israel has done when it comes to its war on Gaza as a total victory is if Israel is able to finally get the remaining captives back to their loved ones as well. So that's always factored into the thinking of what a victory for Israel's army might look like when it comes to most of Israel's population. The question now is, will Netanyahu want to expend political capital to actually do this? And beyond that, another important question is who exactly will be talking on behalf of Hamas. In late July, of course, there was the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, the previous leader of Hamas. That happened in Tehran. He had been the person at the forefront of negotiations before that. Once he had been assassinated, then you had Sinwar, essentially, who was communicating on behalf of Hamas. He had been elected to be the leader of Hamas, and he was the person that was at the forefront of trying to come up with the conditions for some type of settlement when it comes to getting into a ceasefire deal. And of course, now Sinwar has been eliminated. Now, of course, those talks have been off track for a long time, and there has been no real push in the last couple of months to try to get a deal going when it comes to a ceasefire in Gaza and a prisoner and captive swap. But now there are suggestions that that could once again be on the table. But again, one of the key questions is going to be is who is going to be the person when it comes to Hamas, that mediators can speak with to try and actually get something like this done going forward. Laura?
OK, Mo Jamdreen, many thanks indeed for the moment, joining us there from Amman, bringing us the Israeli perspective.